Welcome to Beyond Speaking with Brian Lord, a podcast featuring deeper conversations with the world's top speakers.
Hi, welcome to the Beyond Speaking podcast. I'm Brian Lord. With us, we have Ruben Gonzalez, who is great to have you here.
It's good to be here. I've been wanting to check out this office for 15 years. I'm so excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. Working with somebody 15 years, I don't know how many Olympics that contains. You've been to 4 Olympics in 4 different decades, and you've written a lot of books. Right here, How to Get Where You Want to Be is one of them. You've inspired hundreds of thousands of people. So Ruben, thanks for coming here. We're glad to have you.
Oh, I'm pumped.
So you were kind of like born as a child prodigy who was destined for Olympic greatness from birth. Is that your story?
Yes. I was doing barbells in my crib. Yeah. No, that's barbell.
Yeah.
No. I am an unlikely Olympian. A lot of heart, but no body. I mean, always the last kid picked for PE. It was very frustrating when you want to be in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. So how did you go from this kid who was not that athletic to being, this record-setting Olympian, having this incredible longevity?
I played soccer for my college, and I played 5 minutes a game. Coach said, you get to play only if we're winning by 2 goals. That was the rule, right? And so, but he kept me because I pumped everybody else up, and I got them excited. And when I was 21, I'm watching the Sarajevo games on TV, the Olympics. And I see Scott Hamilton win the gold medal. And he gave me hope. I thought, if that little guy can win, I can at least play. I'll be in the next ones no matter what. It's a done deal. I just have to find a sport. And for the first time, I had the belief to go along with the desire, right? And so I went to the library, got a big book about the Olympics, looked at the summer sports. Took me 5 minutes to realize, man, you got to be a super athlete. There's no way. And I got a little down. Then I started looking at the winter sports, and I thought, my strength's tenacity. Maybe I should find a sport that fits my strength. And so I picked luge. I thought, it looks like a lot of broken bones, maybe a lot of quitters, and I just won't quit. I didn't even know where the track was. I wrote Sports Illustrated a letter, and I asked them, where do you go learn how to luge? They said, Lake Placid, New York. And so I called them up, and I told them, hey, I'm an athlete. I want to learn how to luge, so I'm in the Olympics in 4 years. Will you help me, right?
Yeah.
Ask for help. And the guy says, how old are you? And I said, 21. And he started laughing. He said, forget it, man. You're 10 years too late. We start them off when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. No way. I knew hanging up's not an option. Right? That would have been the end of the dream. And so I just kept talking to him. And finally he says, we got a beginner's camp starting up in a few weeks. Be there. And so I went to Lake Placid. From Houston, Texas, right? The only ice I'd seen was in my iced tea. And now I'm in Lake Placid. That's where it started.
What was that first camp like? And were you welcomed? What were the big surprises for you?
It was interesting. This was a couple of months after I see Scott Hamilton. I'm walking down Main Street, Lake Placid, looking for the Olympic Training Center. There it is, U.S. Olympic Training Center. And that afternoon, we're up at the track. We're going to go on wheels, right? This is a spring, so imagine a luge track, but it's concrete, just wheels. You're going to be going down this half-mile point, so we're going to hitting 50, 55 miles an hour. All we're wearing is tennis shoes, shorts, and a t-shirt, okay? And a helmet, but that's just for decoration. You crash at that speed. And that's the weeding out process in the sport of luge. They put me in a class with 15 other guys, and they're all quitting left and right, And I couldn't believe it. They're quitting on their dream. And before I went, something happened that I'm grateful for. The guy on the phone, rather than candy coat it, he tried to talk me out of it. He said, it's going to be tough. If you want to do it at your age in just 4 years, it's brutal. 9 out of 10 people quit. Well, I started smiling. I thought, this works right into my plan. This is awesome. What's the second thing? He said, expect to break some bones. And I said, great. And he pauses and he goes, what's wrong with you, man? You're nuts. But after I hung up, I started thinking, it sounds like it's going to be tougher than I thought. He says I'm going to break some bones. So how am I going to handle it? What am I going to do? And I thought, well, broken bones before, you wear a cast for 6 weeks, you take off the cast, it's stronger than before. So when you think about it, it's a temporary inconvenience, right? So I had planned ahead, basically. And so when I was getting hurt, I had a contingency plan. Meanwhile, these other guys, maybe they thought it was going to be easy. Hey, you're laying down, you're going downhill, doesn't get any better than that. But no, it's he prepared me mentally or he allowed me to prepare myself mentally. And came back the next winter, and now it's totally different. I mean, on wheels, you got traction. On ice, it's exactly the difference between walking and skating. I mean, that sled's going all over the place. It was brutal. And the first 2 years I was crashing 4 out of 5 times at first. And broke my foot twice, my knee, my elbow, my hand, my thumb, a couple ribs. But I just kept coming back. And you learn, right? And after a while, I'm crashing 3 out of 5. I was like, wow, that was a great day, you know? And 1 out of 10. By the end of the second year, I'm crashing 1 out of 100. Finally figured out how to drive that darn sled. Then you start competing internationally, try to have a world ranking, because only back then, the top 50 got to go. Now it's down to top 35. And you know, back then, if you're number 51, you're watching it on TV, right?
Yeah.
But that's, you know, but if you want something badly enough, you know, you're willing to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to get the job done, you know, some pretty amazing things can happen.
So when you're out there motivating people now, do you try to tell them the really bad stuff first, or like, how do you go with that mindset? Because that's always like a different thing, like, hey, you can do it, or hey, you're going to get crushed.
That's a great question. I tell it a lot like I told you. I had a little bit more, but I try to keep it upbeat. I use a lot of self-deprecating humor, because when they introduce you as any speaker, right? But even if they introduce you as an Olympic athlete, people put you up on a pedestal, and I'm no good to them up there. So I work really hard to get them to realize that I'm just like them. Now we can start working, right? And so my goal with any group is I want them walking out thinking, if that guy can go to the Olympics even one time, I mean, I can do anything, right? And so I want to be their Scott Hamilton. Exactly. That's what I want to do. And I want them walking out ready to face their fears. You know, that fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of what will people think. You know, I want to eliminate that. And now they're ready to go for it.
Yeah, I love that, and I love it that you're sharing that message. How has that changed over, you know, time? So 4 decades of Olympics, you know, being in the Olympics, 4 different decades. How has your mindset changed from that first one, like how you would have motivated somebody after that first Olympics, to how you would do that now?
Wow, no one's ever asked me anything like that. I would have probably focused a little bit more on the how much it hurts, the first one, right? Because I was paying the price back then, right? The physical price. The first 2 years, it was like I said, it was a physical challenge. The next 2 years, imagine, I'd only been sliding for 2 years. Now they put me in this room, and there's all these Olympic champions and world champions, and it was like a crisis of confidence. I thought, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? It's like if somebody dropped, you know, you just got your driver's permit, they put you in this room, and outside that wall is Indy 500, and oh my gosh, there's AJ Foyt, and here's Mario Andretti. What am I doing here? And you're gonna have to race those guys. So I couldn't even look them in the eyes, because I felt, you know, I didn't belong. And meanwhile, the Germans, who totally dominate the sport, I mean, completely dominate the sport, they won't give me the time of day, right? So they're confirming that I don't belong there, right? I might say hi, there's a bunch of them working on a sled, and hey, Hans, how you doing? Nothing. It's like that made me feel that small. And I would be getting ready for a race, and I would find the corner, the darkest corner, where I didn't have to mingle with those guys, and put on mental blinders, and my focus was, I just got to get World Cup points. Just keep going and get these World Cup points, because that translates into a world ranking. And I just focused on that, and a couple of weeks before the Olympics, cracked into the top 50, and I made it, right? So you're not talking to the medal guy, you're talking to the guy who got to play with the big boys. Right? Yeah. And so I'm kind of like the Opie Taylor of the Olympics.
That's great. I love that. And that, just kind of having that spirit, where do you think that came from, that dogged determination? Has that always been there, or where did it come from?
I was born in Argentina. My family moved here when I was 6 years old. And the idea was, we're all going to stay here a few years till things get better over there. So there's a lot of terrorism, bad stuff happening. Wasn't a good place to raise a family. And so I never, we never bothered trying to become Americans back then, because our thinking was, this is kind of like a long vacation, and then we're going to go back. So I was a misfit, because I had different I got picked on a lot, both in elementary and in middle school, because I was the kid that didn't speak English well, or the kid that had weird customs. I never felt it. Never once did I feel it was a racial thing. It was just that I was a little different, right? And so that'll, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger, right? And it makes you self-reliant. When you're getting picked on, you start building a shell, building up walls, and learning about how to take care of yourself. And that, my dad got me to read biographies. He said, if you study the lives of great people, you'll figure out what works, what doesn't work in life, because success leaves clues. That led to reading to reading personal development books, and I became a personal development junkie. I just love that stuff. Yeah. I still do. And I love inspirational movies, right? The Rudies, the Miracle. I mean, I just love them, right? Because that's what I'm about, right? It's like my DNA. It's become that way. So I guess that's why. And it's changed. The message, I guess, is gradually changed a little bit, but it's the same. I try to keep it funny. I try to keep it light, but hard hitting too, because I would be doing them a disservice if I tell them it's going to be tough. Success is simple, but it's not easy. It's gonna. The good news is you got what it takes, right? Yeah. The bad news is it's gonna take everything you got. And so, but if you adopt that philosophy, it's amazing the things that can happen in your life.
Yeah, and I love it too. Success leaves clues. I haven't heard that one before, so I really like that one. Where does that leave you with your own family? So you're talking about your dad telling you this. And you're a dad. What have you passed on with your family?
Let me tell you about my mom real quick first.
Yeah.
My dad was a chemical engineer, very analytical. I was a chemistry biology double major, so if you can graph it, I love it. Analytical too. So that's how I guess I reverse engineered the Olympics, trying to figure out what my strengths were and what would fit, rather than being the kid that was always good at basketball, for example, and made the national team. Right. It was totally different. My mom, she's the one that taught us how to dream. She would tell us stories about how, hey, both sides of our family, they came from Italy, from Spain, and from France. And turn of the century, 100 years ago, when things were really bad in Europe, if you spoke English or German, you ended up in the United States. If you were Southern Europe, you probably ended up in Argentina, because those were two rich countries back then. They left everything behind for the hope of a better life. And then we left everything behind for the hope of better life here in the States, right? And so she always would, let us see that we're willing to give up something that's good for the hope of something better, right? It's worth a chance to become a dreamer like that. So that was a good combination, really balanced out. And so we homeschooled both of our kids. Our daughter Gabriella, she's 21. She's graduating from Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.
Okay. Yeah.
This spring semester, and she's going to social work. And then our son Grayson, he is 17, and he's going to be a aeronautical engineer or space engineer. He's Air Force Academy or Embry-Riddle. So I need a lot of gigs if it's Embry-Riddle, okay?
Yeah, that's all right.
So anyways, I've always, we homeschooled them, but my wife homeschooled them, right? She taught them the ABCs. I taught them mental toughness and attitude, stick-to-itiveness, attitude, that the stuff that'll get you there no matter what system you're using, right?
Yeah, that's great. One of the things too, I think that's so important now, we've kind of gone through these 2 years of COVID, everything else. You talk about resilience. When you're asked to speak on that or answer questions on that, what advice do you give people on how to be more resilient?
Success is a decision, okay? Sooner or later, you get mad, you get to that point where you draw that line, if you're watching Rocky, when they start playing, he gets knocked down, he's just like, I ain't going down no more, right? And they start playing the music, and something about to happen. Okay, when you reach that Rocky moment in your life, sooner or later, you make a decision that you're willing to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to get the job done, right? And that doesn't mean you're going to be stepping on other people. You have to maintain relationships, win-win, obviously. But it's a decision that you make that, hey, that's it. I'm not going to play around anymore. And I don't care what happens out there, I'm going to win. right? And you start looking for a win no matter what happens, right? You break your leg on the luge run, you find you just, it's a knee-jerk reaction. You don't allow yourself to get down because there's got to be a good side to this, and I'm going to find it because I'm a winner, right? And you don't go through that process. It just happens automatically. It's just like an outgrowth, right, of that decision that, hey, I will until. So when COVID hit, I remember that March, the phone started ringing because everybody was canceling, right?
Right.
And I was deer in the headlights for about 2 days, and I told my wife, don't buy anything, okay? I got to figure this mess out. And I got together with a couple of buddies who are speakers too, and we said, hey, we need to figure virtual, okay? Because we're going to survive this thing.
Yeah.
But we got to figure it out. And so we would try all different things, right? One of my mentors said, hey, throw mud on the wall. Some of it will stick, right? Clean up the mess later. And that's how I operate, right? Try different things, figure out what doesn't work. Let's make every mistake in the book with virtual, right? And let's keep, touching base every couple of days. So we learn fast, learn from success, right? From failure, learn the lessons. And within a month, we figured it out. And then we had our lighting right, we had everything set up, and we were able to transition, and we weathered the storm, right?
Yeah.
It didn't mean it was easy, but we weathered the storm. We made it. We survived. And now it seems like it's starting to change again, so that's great.
Yeah. How did your message change, or how did you adapt your message to, either virtual? Yeah. How did you change it to virtual when you were kind of going through this COVID time?
Yeah. Well, typically, when you do a keynote, it's usually about an hour. And I always tell the client, hey, if you've got less than 500 people and it fits, I'm happy to do, the magic happens after the talk, okay?
Yeah.
The talk gets people thinking, right? Thinking about possibilities. But why don't we do some Q&A afterwards? Let's do 20, 30 minutes. And then if you have a party or a get together or whatever, I'm gonna hang around with your folks, because that's when the shy ones will ask me that question they weren't asked in front of everybody. And many times you might be able to say something that just shifts their attitude, and then you get these emails 2 years later about big things that happened, but they got triggered that day, right?
Yeah.
So with virtual, what we figured out that works really well is 30 minutes max, right, for the talk. And I always ask them, what's the theme of your program? What's your goal? What do you want your people thinking, doing afterwards? And what's the challenge? Because I had to overcome tons of challenges to reach my goals. Everybody does. So if I know those 3 things, then I can tailor it for you, and it'll work, right? It does. And so 30 minutes with virtual, and then I told, let's say that you had booked me to speak for your group, right? For Premier, right? And so then you would interview me for 10, 15 minutes. And I give them questions, but I tell them, hey, surprise me, okay? Hit me with something, because that makes it more fun for me.
Yeah.
And then we'll open it up for everybody and leave it open-ended. And then you just say, we got time for one more question. We always finish on time. And that's worked really, really well, really well.
Now you got me curious. So you were telling us, before you came on, that when you're on stage, you're this big, energetic kind of guy, but you used to be the guy who would kind of be quiet in the corner. And you mentioned at the very end of your Q&A, you wait around and those people ask those little questions that kind of the shy people ask. What are some of those things those shy people ask to you? Maybe they're comfortable with you because you were that shy guy too. What are the questions they generally ask?
Well, many times it's just any kind of challenge they're going through. That for them, it's the Mount Everest that's keeping them from reaching their dream or goal. They really believe that, if it wasn't for this, I could do it. And many times I'm able to say something where they reframe it in their mind, right? And they see that, oh yeah, that mountain, we can't move it, but maybe I can take this route over here. Or maybe there's this goat path that goes over this way and it's safe, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they see the possibilities, right? They see that there's a solution. I don't preach to them. Many times I'll just turn around and say something that happened to me, similar, and so there's a connection, right? So,
yeah, I love that. Well, so kind of to finish up here, I always like the practical stuff. What are a few things that people can do today to kind of change their tomorrow? The
books you read and the people you hang around with is basically it. My dad drilled that, right? The books you read and people you hang around with. You become like the people you associate with. You pick up their habits, okay? So, like in your case, you're a runner and swimmer. Which are the two?
Well, running, biking better. I run bike, yeah.
Run bike.
Better, yeah.
It's biathlon.
Duathlon. Yes, yeah. Biathlon, you get to shoot and ski.
Yeah.
And I would do that if I could shoot or ski.
Yeah.
But it's the duathlon, yeah.
Duathlon, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you hang around duathlon champs, right?
Mm-hmm. You get better, yeah.
Yeah, you do. You pick up their habits. You start thinking differently. You hang out with and this works in sales, right? I do tons of sales kickoffs because I sold copiers when I was a kid. Oh yeah, back then when I was a kid. And it's funny. I always tell the VP of sales, look, I'm not going to talk about sales. I'm not going to talk about sales closes, techniques. No, I'm going to talk about attitude. That way you can keep using whatever your system is, but it's going to work better because you know. And so you want to hang around with the salesman of the month. Whoever got that plaque last month, take them out to Starbucks, right? And they'll tell you everything. Successful people, they like to talk about success. Yep. They'll tell you. And you hang around the water cooler with all the whiners and complainers, then you're going down, baby. You may not even have a job next time. It's just a turnaround. And so one thing I'll say a lot is, look, you want to lose 10 pounds? You know what the best diet in the world is? Hang around skinny people. Yeah, you'll be riding bikes and eating salad and you'll be enjoying it and the weight will just melt off, you know? You become like the people you hang around with. You pick up their habits. So that's simple stuff. Success is simple.
Yeah.
Not easy, but it's simple.
Awesome. Well, Ruben, thank you so much for coming on. And I know you mentioned some of those people, like Scott Hamilton's been right here and Rudy's been on this and people from Miracle on Ice. So thank you for joining that crew, being one of those people that have, done so much to inspire so many people. And thanks for coming on the Beyond Speaking podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you for joining us for the Beyond Speaking podcast. To learn more about today's guest, go to beyondspeak.com. Make sure to leave a review and subscribe wherever you listen.